2, 1, go. Hey guys, Ranchin here, bringing on StarCraft commentary. This is going to be the third set between T1 and KT. We're going to have Fantasy versus Stats representing T1 and KT respectively. This is going to be on Empire of the Sun, one of the new maps for this Proleague. At the upper right position at the 1 o'clock, playing blue and Terran is going to be Fantasy. At the upper left-hand position, playing at 11 o'clock as the Protoss player in orange is going to be Stats. So I'm really looking forward to this one. Stats, one of KT's main headers, one of their main Zergs alongside Violet and, of course, Fantasy. One of a part of T1's big three, if you will, Bisu, Best, and Fantasy. And we're going to see how that evolves. Really, during the end of last Pro League, it's truly him that became the ace. Bisu kind of lost it overall. Really started to playing much worse than he usually would. But yeah, Fantasy kind of completely overtook him as the ace of the squad, and he's really been playing like an ace. I remember back a couple of years ago, 08, he was a very good player, but he just wasn't consistent enough. Lost 2 OSLs in a row, you know, that kind of stuff happens. But overall, he just wasn't consistent enough to fulfill an ace role. Sure, he could do it as a backup, just like Best. He could win games. He was a very good player. He just wasn't quite consistent enough to go that extra mile where you would entrust him to win all the ace matches like you could with Bisu. But yeah, this is going to be Empire of the Sun. Pretty big map. Easy to close yourself off in your main. Barracks going to come outside there. Most likely just going to be to float outside. Again, 08-09. Somebody says, of course, the season where T1 won the season against Oz in the finals. Of course, the last season they lost against KT, but there's still two finals in a row. That's pretty good result so far. 2 grand finals in a row since the change in the system. They've where the league has become just one long-ass 8-9 month league. They've gotten to the finals both times of the playoffs, so that's pretty good overall. This is a 4-player map. You got a base in each of the corners. Pretty early scout here coming up for Stats. Going to spot these barracks coming up. Might try to harass that SCV. Isn't going to do that. There is an SCV right there close by. But I think Fantasy might actually finish the barracks. One SCV coming off the line to attack this probe. Does finish. Ooh, almost lose the SCV. Does finish the barracks. Not going to be able to get one Marine out there. Doesn't really seem like he's thinking about walling off. Might just do kind of a partial wall off. Leave himself a small opening to be able to maneuver. Back and forth seems like he's just going to go for factory. Oh, one SCV goes down. Nice play there by Stats. Nice harassment. Going to be able to keep that probe outside, of course. SCVs might have more health, but probe with that regenerating shield really can be able to do a lot of damage. Should be a factory up there coming up, 1 Marine in there. Gonna be forced that probe away, but still Stats got all the scattering information he needs. Now just going to run home with this probe and feel safe. Also going to move out with his Zealot, but I don't really know how much pressure he's going to be able to put on. Second Marine going to come out there, a couple Marines should be enough to make sure that Zealot doesn't do any real damage at all. Zealot's just going to go out there, meet the Marine, going to run him back and forth. Marines are just going to run closer to the safety of the base. Should be getting some more Marines out there to put on the pressure later. Actually, no, going to float the barracks off, so it does seem like he's just going to make a partial wall with this. Marine going to take a hit. Oh, going to land on. Nice blockade. Oh, wow. Just takes one single barracks to close this off. Nice. Wall off with nothing but a barracks and a supply depot here at the back. So that's overall pretty good for Terran. This is a 4-player map. You have that natural outside of the main, and you have a third, which is actually kind of hard to get to. Flash and Bisu, the aces, looking as fired up as ever. Yeah. See how it goes. The stars of BroodWar, people. But yeah, we do have a third kind of to the south of Flash's, for instance, to upper right-hand base. It's kind of harder to defend. It has an entrance, and it's kind of on the low ground there. Only 2 Marines to defend against this Dragoon and Zealot, but I think a tank should be coming out soon. So he should actually be able to hold off with this barracks. He's going to try to get a few shots off with the Marines. He's going to need to get a couple SCVs off the line. They'll start repairing this barracks, though. Yeah, it is about at half health till 1 SCV comes off the line. It's going to take a little fire, though. So really, Fantasy just sitting there waiting on his tank. Going to be forced to get a few SCVs off the line. Was trying to repair with 1 SCV and use the other SCV to heal the SCV, but the repairing SCV. But finally has a tank out there. He's going to force the Dragoon back. No more pressure going to be coming up from Stats. He's meanwhile just been allowed to put up his own natural expo, which Fantasy just now spots. Took a little while to scout that out. Overall, gonna be able to get in here. Oh, let's see what happened. Ooh, actually, I think that, yeah, Cybernetics Core just finished range as soon as the SCV came in there. Commands are meanwhile going to be put up by Fantasy. She's going to want to float that off, but still he's going to be able to he's going to have to fight back against pressure. Still doesn't have siege mode in. 3 Dragoons going to be able to just continue focus fire this barracks. Fantasy can try to repair it just a little bit, stay in this for as long as humanly possible. He desperately needs some siege mode on that tank. 1 Dragoon is heavily damaged. 2 tanks coming out now. These 2 tanks might actually help fight this back. SCV goes down. Another issue can try to repair as long as possible. Now finally siege mode in there. Gonna take a shot and kill that Zealot. Another tank and a couple more Marines. As long as that SCV gonna push out. Commands are gonna start floating off. But with the positioning of the main, you have those walls. You really can defend. You can really defend it well with tanks just close to the walls. As long as you know where the opposing enemy forces are, you can siege on them and do a significant amount of damage. That's gonna be able to float that barracks close enough. So he also gets his natural expansion going. So he's going to be forced to play a little bit defensive. He can't really play aggressively. Didn't go for that many Marines. Didn't go for a push. Was pushed himself. So now he's just going to be forced to play defensively with some tanks. He is pressured a little bit. Has some Dragoons inside of his natural expansion. They're not going to be able to do too much, but they're there. You know, they're going to make sure that if Fantasy decides to push out, which I doubt he will at this point anyway, I think those Dragoons are going to be able to prevent that. Fantasy meanwhile just going to make a wall off at his natural so he can play safely. Going to get his second factory up. Going to continue to get upgrades. Might go for vultures soon as well because vultures with he needs vultures to push out with those tanks. Tanks out in the open by themselves. Before they can siege up, they can be pretty threatened by a heavy number of Dragoons. And also going to repair those tanks. It's losing a tank is pretty bad. It's not getting back your investment. That's always the economics in StarCraft, my friends. Should be seeing observers coming up fairly soon. The observatory is there. There's a robotics facility. And Fantasy's just going to be able to defend, but he only defending his natural. He's not really focusing too much on defense on his main. Doesn't really. I think he might have 1 siege tank in there, sieged up, but the observer seems like he's just going to take the scenic route, not going to fly straight towards the natural. Might try to find a way into that base. We're going to see what actually tries to go for some drop play. I doubt it, but drop play I feel definitely viable because the main is so huge. There are those walls, but there's a huge ground to cover inside that main, so getting a drop in there could be very effective. Also, I feel that that natural is very, very vulnerable to any sort of aerial harass. Reavers could work for a Protoss player. It's going to be especially interesting to see this with a Zerg player playing because Mutalisks are going to be extremely effective and going to be hard to defend against. They have a lot of open area to fly around and harass. Vultures are coming out here for Fantasy. 1 pylon going to come down at that natural. You see that on that low ground, Vulture Mule just going to plant some mines, going to try to delay that as long as humanly possible. So you can fly around, be annoying. That's what Fantasy does, of course. The Vulture terrorist. Oh, 1 mine going to hit 2 Dragoons. 1 more mine in there, so Stat's going to want to be careful with all those mines out there. And Vultures, as always, have a huge amount of utility. So they're overall a big threat. And I think actually those naturals might have even 2 entrances. 1 from your way and 1 from an enemy's way. I'm going to bring up that map. I think I'm actually wrong in that. Pretty sure I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I am wrong? No, I'm right. Never mind. Oops, being silly. Some vultures being killed there. Went ahead and quickly checked the map. There you go. 1 entrance from the main, 1 entrance from natural, from your own base, kinda outside your natural. But yeah, 2 entrances in. Of course, that's why the 3rd becomes so vulnerable. But there is that gas there. There is that 3rd gas. You really need that. But it's a very vulnerable position. So if you try to take that, which stats is going for, you're gonna be faced with some attacks by vultures. But he's doing a smart thing. He's well enough with the pylons. Fantasy's still just staying on his 2 bases. Has an eBay for getting some turrets up there. Those observers out there are going to be annoying. Arbiter Tribunal. Oh, man, Arbiters. How I have missed you. Oh, man. I don't know why, but just the thought that there are going to be Arbiters here just makes me all happy inside. Makes my soul weep in happiness. Just feels this so long. Also, no Void Rays. Oh God, I will never have to see a Void Ray while casting a game of BroodWar. I get carriers instead. Carriers, I love them so much. What in StarCraft 2, they suck. So heavy vulture attack gonna go in here, plant down mines, try to hold stats off a little bit, where it just tries to put on a little bit of pressure, tries to open up and tries to harass the natural expansion, but he's not even up yet. So and at this point I don't really think he'd be able to force a cancel with nothing but vultures, with those dragoons coming in from the back. Arbiters are gonna be coming out on the way. Some turrets out there for Fantasy, but he's gonna need a couple more, I think, to help against those arbiters, and I think planting some minefields, especially inside of that main, would be a good idea. Although now to fly into that main, he has to either fly in from the side, from the lower left, or just straight from that south, in which case that third would reveal the position. But yeah, you see the middle too. It's huge. It's wide open. But there's a lot of mix of high and low ground, so tanks can really push across, take advantage of the high ground. But there's also a lot of maneuverability to be had, a lot of options for pincer attacks, because really at this point you see that stats of some forces down south, some down north, while Fantasy's forces are all in the middle. So if he doesn't even have speed on his zealots yet. And I'm not even sure if I've seen this. Well, actually, yeah, that makes no sense. Never mind what I was going to say. If they hadn't had a citadel, it wouldn't have an arbiter. Arbiter Tribunal, so I'm being all silly. But yeah, just as soon as he gets his speed up, as soon as he gets an arbiter up, pincer attacks could be a definite possibility in Stats' future. He just needs to time it right and be overall sure. Has to retreat with his dragoons right here. Not engage. Vultures coming in, but the tanks are right there at the back. Try to shoot down a few of those vultures, but overall just try to retreat. Finally has his first arbiter out there, so he can be able to put on some pressure. Fantasy's army is kind of a little bit willy-nilly all over the place. Oh, one more shot would have lost that tank. But yeah, Fantasy going to be forced to retreat here. The arbiter in there. That's going to be a big boon. He's meanwhile going to go to his natural expansion with his vultures. One vulture, two vultures, three vultures going to be able to get by into that main. So Fantasy might get some nice harassment done. Might be able to get some mines in there. Meanwhile, now on the opposite side, we do see Stats pushing very heavily. Nothing but tanks, nothing else to defend at the front. Few vultures trying to come in from the back. Arbiter and dragoons all doing a heavy amount of damage. Zealots, also coming in very close. A lot of the tanks go down. The vultures trying to be pressured, trying to desperately blockade. Some of the tanks going to siege from the back. So he is going to be able to hold back this attack. But for how long, I don't know. As soon as Stats get those zealots in, I think he's going to be able to pressure this completely. Also, he might completely close off that natural expansion. He might instead go for that third, which is heavily vulnerable. Seems like he's exactly going to go. That has some of the forces coming in from the natural. Has some forces strafing off to the side towards that lower right, towards that secondary. Bunch of the tanks going to be held back, and Stats putting on a whole bunch of pressure. This third, very vulnerable, nothing but a few dragoons pushing that. Some tanks, arbiters flying off, not taking any fire whatsoever, just allowing cloaking and doing a bunch of damage. Fantasy being pressured very heavily, not getting enough reinforcements, trying to just build some more factories, I think, but is going to lose a lot at that third base. A lot of pressure being put on by Stats. I think not many people expected Fantasy to lose here, but Stats showing that there's a reason he is their mainstay Zerg, mainstay Protoss. What the hell am I talking about? But there's a reason he is that. He's completely massacred that third at this point. All the SCV's gone, and just any defense Fantasy desperately tries to put up just gets completely squashed and squandered. More forces streaming at all times. Stats at this point taking an opportunity to expand at the lower left-hand third. Secondary, yeah, and just, wow, that's just not going to happen at all. SCVs from natural expansion can be forced to run into the main. The commands are going to get flowed up. That's not going to do much at all. Desperately trying to get some defenses up, but Zealots and Arbiter just penetrating all the way into the heart of the main. The commands are at the natural expansion going to go down. Commands are at the third going to go down. Vultures trying to come in, trying to desperately put in some mines, but the mines just get cleared with one single Zealot. The Vultures go down. Zealots among the factories. They just put on the pressure, and I don't think Fantasy has anything whatsoever to do but GG. So Stats gonna take it, bring the lead back to KT 2-1. Fantasy obviously looking a little bit disappointed, not the way he wanted to start the season, but Stats looking ecstatic, happy as can be. High fives all around. So we're definitely, this series still staying exciting, might go all the way to ace, which would be awesome. But we're going to see overall how it goes. We're going to see who T1 sends out next. Of course, between sets, you got your little break where you decide who to send out next. This is not where you know the matches beforehand. I'm pretty sure it is where you just kind of throw them out as you want. A lot of options on both sides still. Best, Bisu, and Hyuk on the T1 side. We have other players as well, which have shown to be decent. I believe there's a player called Sak or something. And, of course, on the opposite side, you got for GG. You got Violet, you got Hoja, you got plenty of players that you can still send out there. As needed, both players with pretty solid ranks overall. So, next up, fourth set. GG guys, Ranchinet was listening. Hope you enjoyed.